First of all, the crowd's energy was insanely awesome. Had a buddy in actually from the Bay Area, said he's never heard an arena that loud before in his life. It was awesome to have the former Razorback players with us today at shoot around and around all day, and then be able to attend the game. And happy we won our first league game.
Question? Bob?
Eric, I think you guys last for over 30 minutes. It was pretty tense there until the last few. Kind of, what do you think of the job A&M did, hanging around, and what did you guys ultimately do to put them away?
Yeah, I mean, the tape that we watched, we kind of figured that it would be a grinded out game. There's not a lot of transition flow when you play A&M. Thought Coach Williams did a phenomenal job controlling tempo, and their three-quarter court press is not a press that they try to turn you over, but it is a press that'll eat up a few seconds of the clock. Having said all that, we all know that it's really difficult to win a game. And, we're 1-0 in league play, and we played, good basketball. I did not think that it was our best game of the year, but we played well enough to win. But we certainly have to play a lot better in Baton Rouge than we did tonight.
Scott?
Coach, it looked like your all-guard lineup kind of changed the game late and then sealed it. What did you like about that group's play?
I thought that, when we went with the 5 guards, it was a little risky. Naturally, as a coach, you think about, when you have 5 guards out there defensively and rebounding is what you're concerned with. The 5 guards was our best lineup defensively, and they were our best rebounding lineup. What I didn't think was going to happen was I didn't think we'd struggle to score. And we went through a scoring drought with those guys out there. But a lot of that's not on our players, it's on us. We ran middle pick and roll, and we ran the shot clock down. We didn't even try to get any action until about 11 seconds on the shot clock, because I was looking at the score and felt like if we just milked the clock a little bit, that there wasn't going to be enough possessions based on them not playing real fast either. So there was a little bit of clock management. We were playing a little bit of a gamble, running the clock down, but we felt it was the best way to handle the last 4.5 minutes of the game. We were concerned, obviously, about rebounding, but I thought, we do a great job when a shot goes up and just kind of tipping it and keeping it live, and then hoping one of our guys outreacts somebody. And, for Mason and Isaiah to lead us in rebounding, I think they combined.
Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It's a great day, January 6th, 2020, on a Monday afternoon in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And it's our initial opening show of the 2020 year. Glad to be back in. We had a great break. Demetrius, did you have a good little holiday break, my man? We get you going? Pretty good. He's not listening to me right now. He can't hear what I'm saying. Well, we came in with audio as we're getting my buddy. He's going to come on there, getting his microphone all situated up. We were out for a couple of days, so take some time to get back in. But I swear we'll get it going. And when we do, you know how we do it. All gas, no brakes. But we let you hear audio from head men's basketball coach, the must-bust, Eric Musselman, as Arkansas opened up conference play, a 69-59 winner over the A&M Aggies in Bud Walton Arena on Nola Richardson Court. Brings their record to 12-1. Demetrius, I'm going to get you in now. Man, I'm going to be one of the first ones to admit when Coach Anderson was let go, I too, for some personal reasons, wasn't too happy with the decision. But as I've let that the feelings go, things got a little calmer. I've come to realize, great hire. I mean, this is a guy that I feel like you kind of have to give Coach Anderson a little credit for the talent that he brought in. Taught the kids toughness. This was not a bad defensive team last year by any stretch of the imagination, but they've gotten better. There's no bigger growth that I think from year one to year two. And this basketball team, what Eric Musselman has brought in, his philosophies and just the way that he hits prep for each and every game, Demetrius. I mean, Hunter Yurchek has to get a big gold check mark. Start the year 2020 off, don't you think, as far as men's basketball is concerned?
For sure. Musselman's definitely put it on an excellent product from what we have on the team, because I think coming in at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of people that had them, going in last in the SEC, didn't think they would be over 500, and here they are, sitting at 12-1, 13 games in, and guys are really stepping up and really, buying into the Musselman area.
Which goes to show, and I think and I've been talking about this quite a bit out and about town through our breaks, is Razorback fan base. Be patient. A lot of fans, Demetrius, were all up in arms when Musselman was the hire, and he wasn't a sexy hire. Let's just be straight up forward. He's a guy came from Nevada. Doesn't matter where you're from. If you can coach, you can coach. I mean, the guy has the third highest winning percentage in all of college basketball for active coaches with a minimum of 4 years. I mean, you kind of got to let Hunter Yurchek do his due diligence, and I think he did a great job, and also, too, did a fabulous job in the hiring of my guy, Coach Sam Pittman, as he's finalized his staff as we anticipated through the break. That would all come to fruition. Sam has put the pieces together, Demetrius, and let's gingerly break this down and to the questions that if you have any questions that you'd like to interact with Demetrius and myself, you can do so on our YouTube live page. That's On the Hill LLC, Sports Talk LLC, and On the Hill Sports Talk is our Facebook Live. You can get in. And the questions, where are you? 13 games in. If you're one of those straddlers of the fence on basketball with Eric Musselman, where are you now? Tell us your reasons. If you're back home, still kind of hesitant, we'd like to know. And Coach Pittman, what do you think about this, what I think is going to be an all-star football staff of coaches and / great elite recruiters? Now, I know some of them come from the high school ranks, junior college, analyst roles, but what Coach Pittman, Demetrius, has been able to pull together, and you see it, on social media throughout a lot of the national media, is that, hey, they were laughing at one point, but a lot of that laughing has turned into big-time amazement with what Coach Pittman has been able to pull off as far as his staff and strength conditioning goes.
Yeah, I just see the value of having guys that are proven and guys that have competed at the highest level within their respective groups. You look at Barry Odom, having that head coaching experience. Then you look at the guy he brought in from Hutchinson, having that, that JUCO experience. And then bringing the offensive coordinator, somebody who's, worked with multiple Heisman candidates, worked with high octane offenses. I just feel like he brought in every element that he needed to be successful from a defensive and offensive standpoint. And then again, going back to Barry Odom, with him being an offensive guy, he brought in an assistant guy that he could give the reins to the defense and say, hey, guy, I'm not going to really have a big part in the defense. You're here to really be the head coach of the defense. And I think he was smart about it and really minimize his workload that he really has to do and can really focus on being a head coach his first year here at Arkansas.
Yeah, we're going to break down the coaching staff as we go along throughout the show. And Barry Odom's a guy that I felt, and I still feel, having him on staff is going to be a great asset. As when it was announced by Coach Pittman, he'd be the defense coordinator. A lot of that is he'd been a former head coach in the SEC, so I think that's going to be something that he can always draw on in certain situations during his initial first year as the head coach in this big major conference. But I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem as the years goes on. I just feel like, what Sam has been able to do is hire guys, and he's going to be one of those guys, Demetrius, kind of like a Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, maybe Ed Orgeron, Ryan Day. He's going to allow his coaches to coach, and I think that's what you have to do. You have to be a good distributor of responsibilities. And when you allow coaches to coach, you get the best, I think, from your players, from your coaching staff, and which all goes hand in hand. You're going to get the best from your entire football team. And I think with the coaches he's been able to bring in, Ryan Rhodes is a guy from the junior college ranks. People look at that because on social media, Demetrius, when Ryan was named the linebacker coach on Sam's defensive staff, a lot of red flags, a lot of question marks. But I've always felt like, this is a guy he understands. Kids come to him, Demetrius, already thirsty to get back to the next level, having been humbled by probably being a 4 or 5 star athlete, high 3-star, and just not quite have the grades. So I think that's going to be something that Ryan will be able to bring to this program. I think I think Ryan Rhodes is a great coach. And then when you look at Sam Carter, the defensive back coach, formerly played his college career at TCU, just recently graduated in 2014. You get a youthful guy, a guy I feel like is going to be able to really connect age-wise with these kids, not having been not too far removed from the collegiate game himself. It's a staff that has a lot of diversity. You have a lot of youth mixed with experience. And I think that's going to be something really big because I've always talked about it and felt real strong, Demetrius. The diversity within the SEC, in particular the SEC, is really, really big. And I think I think this staff has really hit the ground running and kind of got themselves in a really good position as, the recruiting period starts here in about a week. Yeah, he's still getting some things going. But what I was telling you, I think with the staff, I think the recruiting, when you get a guy like Jimmy Smith, former high school coach there in the Atlanta area, former athletic director, knows the landscape of Georgia high school football. With so many kids being sought after in that state, you're gonna have Coach Fountain, Scott Fountain, the special teams coach there at Georgia, haven't had so much experience. He's been in Auburn, Georgia. Places like that, and then you throw in a Sam Pittman, big time offensive line coach at Georgia, but well known throughout the state, and then Scott Jimmy Smith, 3 guys that are really going to have a high brand and a presence in that state that's going to really, really help Arkansas going forward, don't you think?
Definitely. I really like the mentality that Sam Pittman really brings when he talks about just what are you going to be your ties to Arkansas? He really brags on, I'm going to be that tie. I'm going to be that anchor. I'm going to be that guy that builds these relationships. I think a lot of the times, Sam Pittman has no problem letting people know that he's from Oklahoma, but I think he has a special place being so close to Arkansas, right, and it being right down the street. You can throw a rock from where he's at to Arkansas. So I think the way he sees it, he is from Arkansas, and I think he really wears that with pride, and he doesn't have any problem getting down there in the trenches, going to meet those high school coaches, building those relationships. There was a couple of guys over the break, that defensive back, Kevin Compton, that he reached out to and said, he had a phone conversation with and would be interested.
And let's talk about that, Demetrius, because there was a very, very, and I want to say whoever the individual was that played the very, it wasn't funny, joke on John Oliver, a young man that really aspires and has a dream to be an Arkansas Razorback. For the guy or persons that decide to run that joke, come on, guy. Come on, people. But what do you think about that when fans or whomever it is, attack kids that aspire to be preferred walk-ons? Where are you at with that? Because we all, we've heard so much of John Oliver. He's a guy that really is really self-promotional on social media, Demetrius. But, where were you at? Because I thought it was quite classless for whomever decided to play that prank on that young man.
Honestly, I hadn't heard anything about that until you mentioned that right on air. But I don't really think it's funny. But what's crazy is my brother did that to me my freshman year when I was going to Graham, and he did the same thing. It was tough.
That's tough.
It was tough, but I ended up walking on, so it was funny, that day. But for guys that have those aspirations and really don't have the resources, or maybe just not good enough to go to that level, it hurts when somebody plays with their emotions like that. But the beauty of it is that I do like the fact that Sam Pittman is allowing walk-ons a place here at this program.
Right.
That was something that I think even when I go back to Bobby Petrino, because I tried to walk on the year Bobby's final year, I think Bobby had got to a place where he had seen so much success that there was no need for a walk-on program. And I don't think that's true. I think there's always going to be a room for a walk-on program.
I'm a big proponent of a walk-on program.
You always have those diamonds in the rough that maybe just didn't have the grades, maybe didn't have the financial support, maybe didn't have the family support to get them over that hump, to get them what was really needed to get that maybe scholarship, or maybe that look from a smaller Division I school or a Division I AA school. So I love that Sam Pittman really embraces that walk-on program and really wants to make if the kids from Arkansas don't have the ability to get at least a full ride, that he sees room to at least fill a void to bring them and bring that pride and that energy with the walk-on program.
I know momentarily we'll have a clip from this past weekend's post game with the A&M head basketball coach Buzz Williams. I had quite a few complimentary things to say about this Arkansas basketball team under Eric Musselman and going forward. You'll hear all that in our coming break, but also too, want to also think about the things that Sam Pittman is doing in the preferred walk-on program. I agree with Demetrius 100%. Great programs have great walk-on programs because not everyone's going to come out of high school and be instantly ready to contribute at the collegiate level. Not everybody's going to get a full scholarship right out of high school, but when you can create a great walk-on program, there's going to be about 3 or 4 guys that you'll be able to pick 2 or 3 years on down the road that are going to play major factors within that program at some point in either one big game, 2 big games, but quite a few big games they'll have an impact, and that's always what you think about. Brandon Burlesworth, a guy that came through on the walk-on program, paid his dues, stayed true to himself, both on the field and off the field in the classroom, and was able to earn All-American status. Hence, being able to have the opportunity, unfortunately, wasn't able to play at the at the NFL level, but had the opportunity to live out his dream with the Indianapolis Colts. But, just like what's going on with the program, we're going to come back and talk much, much more. There's some things I want to talk about. A young man lost his life about a week ago, and if you think back, Demetrius, we had Bryce Gowdy on, young man out of Deerfield Beach, Florida, as he was a big-time prospect at the receiver position for Coach Stepp in that Arkansas program. Talk about that, and it goes back to what we talked about at the SEC Media Day, the mental depression that some of these young men go through. We'll talk about all that, and then we got more questions. If you want to talk to us about what are your feelings with the Must Bus and where Arkansas is at 13 games into the season as they're 12-1 and heading to Baton Rouge for a big-time 8 o'clock matchup where you can see it on ESPNU versus the LSU Tigers this coming Wednesday, I should say. And then we'll get back with much, much more. What do you think about the staff? Are you surprised? Or, where are you at with the hires or the hire still yet of head coach Sam Pittman? All that's coming up. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. It's 2019, guys. And you know what I say. Let's get it.
Adrian on the track, yeah. This boy got a hit.
How do you think you guys execute the game plan and kind of played your pace most of the time they took on Arkansas?
I think we have to shorten the game in order for our roster to have its best chance. I thought in many respects we played to the scouting report. The coach has done an incredible job relative to their execution. If you study their defensive numbers, they're through the roof. And then I think offensively, all of those guys are very confident in what they're doing, and I think they're aware of who's shooting and when, and there's unquantifiable value in that. We have a negative margin from the tip, and I thought our preparation was good. I thought we handled an incredible college basketball environment in many respects about as well as we could. It's just so hard for us to overcome the turnover rate that we have. And I don't know the exact number, but it was very high in the last ATO of the first half, and very high in the last ATO of the second half. So.
What do you think Arkansas overall? And yeah, I think you guys had 3 turnovers in a row there, where there's about a 7-point game.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they got some cushion finally.
Yeah, 3 is very pesky. Maybe that's the appropriate adjective. Really, really good on the ball defender. And I think their pressure, regardless of which player, they do a really good job of, I don't know if being in the gap is the right word, but.
It's our Monday edition, our first edition of the 2020 year here on OTH, and I'm excited to be back. But I enjoyed my break, but I always like talking hogs and much, much more with all of our listeners. And real quick, before we continue on, I want to read off a good question from one of our great listeners. It says from Mr. Terry Roy, do y'all think Arkansas will be better offensively or defensively this year? I think the defense will be better. I'll let my co-host Demetrius handle that, and then I'll tackle it. Do you think the offense will be better or the defense? And that's from Mr. Terry Roy out of the Houston area. Beaumont, I should say.
If I had to just go off last year, I think the defense is going to be better. I think when you look at the two groups from last year, the offense has definitely produced at a more consistent rate than the defense. I think the defense was really the cause of us losing a lot of games. I felt like even though offense maybe didn't have the best performance in some games, that they did enough to win those ball games, but it was the defense that when it was crunch time and we really needed a stop or a play, they were the ones that kind of let us down. So I think Barry Odom and guys like that, and not only that, the recruits that we brought in with the linebacker position and the support that I think some of these freshmen and having guys like Jamario Bell and guys like Dorian Gerald coming back, I think you're going to see a better overall production for the defense.
And if Jamario does, I'd heard rumors that he's trying to get a medical red shirt. Which I don't think that's going to be too hard. If he gets that adds even more. But I think Arkansas will be better. I would have to say defensively at that point, because they have more defensive returning starters, guys that's played the football. And I think really I'm saying that because I feel like the line of scrimmage, Arkansas is going to be better on the defensive line. I feel like, we got guys like Mateus Soley and the Williams kid and Marshall and those type of guys that's play a lot of football for you. I think, when Barry Odom brings in his new attacking system, I think that's where it all boils down to, because it's not a lack of talent. I want people to understand this football team is not 4-20 talent type of 4-20 talent. It's better than that. I think it was just some of the situations they were not put in to be advantageous for them or the football team, which enhances going to give you a 4-20 record. You can tell each and every week with the lack of understanding who the quarterback was going to be. I think the best players are going to play for Coach Pittman. I think it's going to be a very physical, attacking, aggressive football team. I think on both the offensive and defensive sides. I think when you have big receivers, Kendall Browse was one of the big-time hires in all of college football. To be able to get him to come in and be an offensive coordinator, he's had so much success with those big guys, that speed at Baylor, and then he moves to Houston, had a very formidable RPO quarterback in De'Eric. And then he moves to FAU, has players, Florida State. So wherever he's been able to have a very dynamic offense. He's a very unique, a very innovative play caller. I think that's something that Arkansas really needs, and I really do think that he's going to be able to use KJ and Monte Spivey and Raheem Boyd, who was real big, Demetrius. I think that's the biggest recruiting coup for Coach Sam Pittman, was getting Raheem Boyd to come back, because now you have a go-to. you have a big time bell cow, and you had Raheem Boyd to be your senior guy who's, I think, going to come in probably one of the top 2 running backs in the SEC. If not, he should be. I mean, let's just be up front. And I think Coach Pittman's going to add a little bit more in the offensive line. I think that's where you're really going to see the Sam Pittman effect be seen so quickly in the lines of scrimmage. That's where I am, Demetrius.
Absolutely, and I think you're going to see the benefits of Raheem staying. I think Raheem's going to have another 1,000-yard year, and then you're going to see how much the offensive line improves, because you got to think, Raheem pretty much probably got about 600 of those yards on his own without anyone blocking. So I think with the addition of these younger freshmen that Sam Pittman is bringing in, some that have not yet committed, that I think are seriously taking a look at Arkansas.
Big time recruitment coming up.
I think at the end of the day, you're going to see definitely a drastic improvement on the offensive side, because I think from a skills player, I've always said that there was talent. Even when guys said, "Hey, we don't have receivers, we don't have running backs." No, we do have the skills.
Right.
I don't think we had the time and the right guy at the quarterback position, but I think with Kendall Browse coming in, you may even see somebody from the transfer portal come in that we maybe didn't expect at that quarterback position, because we have so many ties.
Steve Armin, one of our top fans and a great listener, always chimes in with great questions, Demetrius. Steve says, hope we will still recruit well in Texas. Steve, I think Arkansas is going to recruit quite well. I think the addition of Kendall Browse, a well-known college coach and recruiter, as well as a great offensive mind in the state of Texas. I think with the addition of Derek LeBlanc, Arkansas's new defensive line coach, having had ties during his time coaching at North Texas. I think, when you look at Coach Sam Pittman, he was able to go in there and get Chad Lindbergh, a young man who many consider the top offensive lineman in the state of Texas, was able to go in there and Chad ended up signing early with the University of Georgia. You have Sam Carter, a guy that's out of the Houston area. He has ties to that state. Barry Odom, we all know, how many kids at Missouri and Coach Brad Davis were able to, get from Texas to the Columbia area to play. So I think Arkansas is not going to have an issue with recruiting the state. I also know, when you have a guy like Ryan Rhodes, a junior college former coach, he's going to know all the area, in the state of Texas, know a lot of those high school coaches and whatnot. But I think Arkansas is really going to have even a stronger presence than maybe they had under Chad Morris. I know it's going to be even stronger under Brett Bielema, but I think it's going to be as strong, if not stronger, going forward under this new Sam Pittman era and the coaches that he's been able to achieve. Demetrius, where are you at with Arkansas being able to maintain that visibility in the state, in that big Lone Star state?
I think it's too hard not to. And I think once Arkansas really starts getting consistent success, you're going to see more and more Texas kids really want to come to Arkansas. Because, outside of, Texas A&M, you really don't have an SEC presence. And, you still, outside of Oklahoma, the Big 12 hasn't had a really big presence in the playoffs. So I think even when you look at Arkansas, it's still appealing to a lot of those Texas kids, especially when you look at Dallas being, 4 to 6 hours away, depending on what part of Dallas you stay in. I just see it being too close to home to really forever lose that presence. And again, I think once you really start winning, because I don't care where you're from, when you win, people want to come
and think about
to
this.
Where you are.
Think about this. Nick Turner, Jaqueline McGee, a young man out of the Georgia area, committed to Coach Pittman, sight unseen. Mr. Coates, the defensive end out of East Mississippi Community College, signed with Arkansas early, sight unseen. Mr. Brule, sight unseen, signed with Arkansas early. And that just goes to show the relationships and the trust that these coaches were able to build, and Coach Sam Pittman and that staff, before these kids even made their official visits to come and see their future homes. That just goes to show the type of belief and the vision that this staff will be able to show these young men. I feel really good about what they're gonna be able to do, what they're gonna accomplish. A lot of 4-star and 5-star kids and high 3-star kids will be making their way. The 17th will be one of those weekends that this university hadn't seen in quite a while. And if Arkansas, going forward with the basketball team, Demetrius, if they could continue to have a big season, and then these next two, I think it's going to be real big for that weekend of the 17th for Sam and that staff. On to the next question, and I have to get Nick Lee. Nick talked about the secondary being so young. Demetrius, what's your take on that? Because I got a theory on that.
I like it. I think when you see a lot of these younger guys, even like Ladarius Bishop, there was flashes that he had that really showed me. I think he can compete. And I think when you look at these defensive players that Sam Pittman is bringing in, he's bringing in a whole different caliber of guys. You got to think there's no defensive player smaller than 6'4" that he brought in.
The big boys.
That's crazy to think
boys.
on the defensive side. He didn't bring in a
and
shorter
even
player.
McGee is 6'4", 260, 265 that he has committed the defensive end out of Georgia coming in.
And I know he specifically asked about the defensive back position, but I think once you get more help around you, and especially on that front and middle interior as far as defensive line and linebacker, it's going to make your back end better, especially when you get that pass rush because – man, if you got a dominant pass rush, 3-4 man pass rush, your DBs are going to have a field day. That's really where you see guys really have a lot of picks and interceptions when you have a ferocious front that can really cause some havoc up front for that quarterback.
And at the same time, in their defense, they didn't play a lot of press coverage. I think playing press coverage helps you. Being a former secondary guy myself, I mean, it allows you time to be real physical, throws off timing routes. I thought Arkansas played a lot of zone coverage. And we're able to allow the receivers and tight ends and running backs to run their own routes, in the direction and places they were supposed to be and just play pitch and catch. I think Arkansas is going to have a way more aggressive approach. I think if you look at this basketball team, just like you would look at this young secondary or defense Arkansas had on the football field, I think you'll kind of see some parallels as they were young. They're going to learn. And the biggest jump is from year 1 to year 2, so I anticipate a Greg Brooks having learned. I think Devin Bush finally been able to get his opportunity. Malik Chavis. I think, even Buster Brown had points that he could have gotten a lot better. I think, Catalon. You talk about Joe Fouché. You talk about Miles Mason. All these guys had some points. Not so much Catalon, but the other guys I mentioned had points in the season. Not so much Malik Chavis or Devin, but those other guys had opportunities where they were exposed in maybe some matchup situations due to the scheme defensively that was played. These guys, to me, when I watch them in the summertime and in fall camp, Demetrius, these guys have a different type of mentality, a very aggressive approach, and I feel like every time Arkansas brought pressure, you could see during the season they had some success. I mean, when it was an aggressive defense, it was really good. But when they went back into that prevent, that whatever that was, I mean, that's when they started having their difficulties when they went to the zone coverage. I thought that was a real big problem for this football team going forward. Oh yeah, and he's got to mess with me. This is Terry giving me a little grief on my Buffalo Bills. He's a Patriot fan, so I know we didn't have a good time. Neither team. The AFC East is out of representation, Terry, and we got to just go back to the drawing board. Yeah, you ask me. There's going to be a good offense. Okay. Now, he believes, this is also Nick Lee, I think it begins and ends at the line of scrimmage. Absolutely. Absolutely. In the SEC, it's a line of scrimmage league, and that's going to be that way as long as the Southeastern Conference is playing football. It's a line of scrimmage league, and it's a big league, and I think that's where another advantage happens with Coach Pittman being able to understand the line of scrimmage, the way it has to be, the type of bodies that you have to have both on the offensive and defensive lines. I mean, you go back to Derek LeBlanc. Derek LeBlanc signed a great group of defensive linemen and defensive ends that'll be making their way to Kentucky. And when you go back and I look at some of those fields, Justin Rogers, a big-time prospect that he was able to get to sign early with Kentucky, a young man, I believe, out of the Maryland area. Agile, mean, and just arrives to the ball carrier in a very bad mood. And I think that's some things that we'll start to see, that big guys that can move, Demetrius, that we always see Arkansas play against. I mean, you look at the Derek Browns and the Marlon Davidson and the Nick Coles. Those are some pretty big guys. Those are 295, 300-pounders, 6'4", 6'5", that can flat out move. And I think having Derek LeBlanc and Coach Pittman, I think you'll start to see, as you mentioned, you'll start to see the more SEC-ready football player coming in as a freshman than maybe what we have seen. We'll see a lot of those Traylons and Trey type of guys coming here in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, you're really starting to see him now. I think, again, when we talk about that defensive line, I think this is probably one of the biggest and most stout defensive lines I've probably seen since being here. Even when you look back on what they brought in last year with, Chad Morris. So I'm really excited with what in the identity that Sam Pittman's really creating. He's talking about this toughness. He's talking about this physical. But not only that, it matches the bodies that he's going to
Right.
get. And I think once you have a philosophy that matches the athlete, that's when you really can start getting schematics and really producing at a high level from a football standpoint. So I think the beauty of having Sam Pittman and him coming from a position coach's perspective is you can really tell he knows how to put things together. He
Right.
knows how to mesh things. And I know a lot of negative feedback was he didn't have head coaching experience, and I think this guy really did. I think he was a head coach.
That
at
goes
Georgia,
all out the
even
window.
though under Kirby.
People don't realize that Urban Meyer, the great Urban Meyer that so many people hail as one of the collegiate GOATs, was never an offensive coordinator. He was a position coach before he got his first collegiate coaching head job. So I'm not trying to understand or hear any of the, scuttlebutt. Well, he's not been a head coach. If you know football, you know football. And we stated here a few weeks ago before we took our Christmas break, Sam turned down several offensive coordinator positions. I think, Sam Pittman was an all-American defensive end at Pittsburgh State, so he understands the defensive side of the ball. What I think Sam's going to do is hire his coaches and allow those guys to coach. I think he's going to be very much involved in every aspect of the football team. One other thing I think is real big is getting Scott Fountain, the special teams coach from the University of Georgia. I mean, this is a coach that comes with a high, well-accomplished resume, Demetrius. Having coached I believe 6 to 7 years at the University of Auburn. Has a great background in the SEC. Was recently, I think Georgia had the number 1 rated special teams in the SEC just this past year. How big is that to have a proven SEC special teams coach? Because we've seen what happened the last 2 years in that particular part of the Arkansas football program.
It's good. I think special teams is one of those things you don't want to really overthink, because I still feel like they really didn't maximize and utilize the players. I like Traylon at the punt return, but I still didn't understand why you have a former second team or first team All-American in Davion Warren. When it came to kickoffs, I felt like he should have been utilized a little bit more, which would have gave Traylon Burks a little bit more time to recover. So I don't think special teams is one of those things you just have to have a guru there. I think it just understands who your athletes are and then putting them in a position to really be successful. And I think, again, we have the skilled athletes to really get it together. I think when it comes to special teams, just having a unit that doesn't give up dumb penalties.
Right.
Because I think once you get a guy that can really make a play with the ball in his hands, anything can happen. And I think we have those guys on campus.
Terry also wants to know, do we think Coach Pittman will sign a JUCO lineman, or is what Coach Pittman has on campus good enough? As a collegiate coach, you never think it's good enough. You always, if you're not in the business to improve your position rooms each and every year, then, you're not going to be in that business very long. And I think that's what Sam's going to do. I think Sam has to improve the offensive line. Let's just be blatantly honest. No disrespect to any young men that's wearing that Razorback jersey right now. But for the most part, as a whole, when you talk about the collective group depth-wise, that's not an SEC type of offensive line group on what you would have. You have to have about 8 to 12 guys that can flat out get it done when you have to get it done. And so, like we say, those dudes, you got to have some of those dudes that, as Coach Pittman like to say, what do you call it, D? The real deal. You better have the real deal. And I think that's what Arkansas, by when you look at Ray Curry, a young man that was committed to the University of Missouri at 6'5", 305 pounds, very athletic. Marcus Henderson, a young man who just recently concluded his high school season by playing in this past Thursday's Under Armour All-American game. You know, guys that are 6'5", about 300, 305, that have that streak about them, that nastiness. And I think when you look at Jalen St. Paul, a young man that'll be coming in on the 17th, who's also committed to the University of Missouri, and Coach Brad Davis out of the St. Louis area, he's another 300-pound guy. It's just they're gonna get it. You know, Coach Pittman liked to say it. You know, he learned the recruiting was like recruiting on steroids at the University of Georgia. And Demetrius, when you look at it, I think that's what Coach Pittman and his staff are going to start bringing here. The bigger athlete, the more SEC-ready athlete. And I think, you know, the fans will be quite happy here in a couple of years. We're going to take a real quick break. We caught up with Jimmy Witt following this weekend's Texas A&M game. Jimmy's going to just talk about just where the basketball team is. I think, you know, this team is picking up more and more steam. He mentioned about the crowd, and it was a tremendous crowd. I want you to know, 19-2 strong. Felt like old days of Nolan Richardson when he was the head hog. But we'll let you hear Jimmy, and then we'll get back to close this thing out. If you have questions, what do you think? Must bust, where you at? And Coach Pittman, where you at also? Chime in with us. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Kind of, what was it like, kind of, you know, being that close, and kind of what did you guys do at the end to take control?
I think we just chalked that up to conference play. We knew they were going to come out and play hard, play well. So you got to give credit to them, but it was one of those games that you need in conference play. Show you can grind it out, even when things may not be going your way or how you want them to. So I'm not too disappointed in how it went. I thought we needed it personally.
I think Adrian picked up his fourth foul with around 12 minutes left. You guys went with the 5-guard lineup the rest of the way. How do you think that impacted the game, changed the game?
I think we give up a little size, obviously, so it makes it a little tougher for us to go out there and rebound, but I felt like today we were able to go out there, compete hard on defensive end, get rebounds when we needed to, make defensive stops when we needed to, and then on offense it's hard to guard 5 guards because they play there's a mismatch. We have guys that can shoot, get to the rim, drive, so we cause a matchup problem when we go 5 guards.
Jimmy, you're a guy that gets inside and scores and rebounds, but Desi Sills and even J5 coming off the bench today did a good job of that. Talk about the guard core and playing a physical brand sometimes when the threes aren't falling.
That's good. When you can get points on the inside, it keeps.
Welcome back. Want to give a shout out real quick to our sponsors, as this would not be possible without you all, and we really love your support for us here at OTH. With that being said, Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. That's Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, residential, commercial, doesn't matter. Call Corey Beck. You will not be disappointed, I guarantee you. And lastly, KDK's Chicken, located at 989 Razorback Road. Get down to see Kathy and get your plate of that love. It's like they say, it's not your mama's, the best chicken and waffles in the South. But we had a question from one of our very loyal listeners, and it was Christopher Shaw, and he says, what's the 2020, when is the 2020 OTH swag coming out? I'm going to turn that over because that's a question I had to ask my producer, and we had that question a lot of times, and we came up with something for 2020, so I'll turn that over to Demetrius. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, so we do have a new shirt dropping. It's the OTH shirt. Let's get it. You know, that's Pat's one of Pat's favorite lines on the show. If you watch the show a lot, you know he says "Let's get it" after every line he can. So this will be one of the This will be one of the mini shirts we do drop. We have more designs coming. You can find the shirt at saucedupentertainment.myshopifystore.com. I'll have a link up there, or if you also want to see the link, just go on the Hill Sports Talk. You'll see the link in a couple of other shirts, and we do have that shirt coming in the mail for that winner. Last week we had a giveaway that we gave somebody, so just know Just be patient with us. We do have your shirt coming in the mail. We'll be ordering it today and sending you that confirmation so
It's
you
the
can know.
OTH takeover in 2020.
Yes, sir.
It's the OTH
Yes,
takeover.
sir.
Hey, we had another question. We'd like to get back, and we always like interacting with our listeners, and we're not going to let this question go without chiming in. Nick Lee, one of our top fans again, and Nick, you always just keep it coming, buddy. The questions are awesome. Do we think the Hog basketball team will make the tournament, or is this an NIT team? I'm going to go on record now and saying this is a NCAA tournament basketball team. I think Arkansas, as the season goes on, will be a team that you talk about as a sleeper to win the SEC. I mean, this is a better basketball team, but I think the one thing that goes unnoticed, you play defense, you defend, you rebound, you stay in basketball games. No one is going to shoot 100%, but what this team I've seen over the first 13 games, they understand their identities. They play great defense, and on the offensive end, they play within themselves, and they understand that Isaiah and Mason have to be the guys, but Jimmy Wood has to be the calming demeanor on that basketball team, and that's what I've liked so far. I think Adriel Bailey's playing his best basketball. I liken him to like a Darryl Hawkins back in the heyday when Arkansas with young guy by the name of Big Nasty and the Ruston Rifle made their way to the Meadowlands. And I'm not saying this is a Sweet 16 team, but I'm saying this is the type of team as that was. They're going to have to do it by committee. They're going to have to play outstanding defense night in and night out. Now, you've heard me say this, guys. They're only going to be as good as they rebound and defend and execute possession by possession on that offensive end. And, they do those things. This team, I believe, is going to go in as a anywhere from a 6 to 8 seed in the NCAA tournament this season. But I think the days of NIT are far in the rearview mirror, and I think Arkansas is really going to, start looking for great things with what they have in the future. Demetrius, where are you at with that?
Exactly. Can you ask me the question again?
Nick says, do we think Arkansas is going to be in a tournament or an NIT ball club?
Oh, yeah. I think, if they stay on the track that they're producing, because I still have yet to think they've peaked yet. I think most of them are still finding ways and things that they can improve on and get better at. So, no, I don't think they're NIT team.
Shay wants you to post a link on our broadcast for the shirt.
I will. Give me a second, and I will have the link. If you go check that out, if you give us a second, at the end of the show, I will have the link to the shirts on the OTH. So if you just wait to the end of the show, you can go to On the Hill Sports Talk on our Facebook page, and there will be a link. The shirts are $15. And also, any sponsors looking to get some advertising or anything, you can also hit us up at On the Hill Sports Talk at what is it, Pat J? On the Hill Pat J
at gmail.com.
Yeah, so we have a lot of opportunities to network with our listeners. We love interacting with you guys. We love creating with you. If you have any ideas that you would like us to do, send them our way. Don't hesitate to inbox us.
Right.
We're friendly. Any way we can help out and make this a more better experience.
It's the OTH takeover in 2020.
We got to do it. We bringing you anything and everything we can. But back to the basketball team. Like I was saying, I do think they're a tournament bound team. I think, like I said, Musselman is just one of those guys, man. It's like he has eyes in the back of his head.
Right.
He sees everything on the court, and he's always looking for a way to improve the team. And if you really think about it statistically, they haven't even shot their best percentage yet. You know? They haven't even surpassed some of the shooting percentages that they had earlier in the year. So I don't think they've really peaked yet. So I think, Musselman, he's gonna figure out a way to get them, coming at their peak form right around tournament time. So this is going to be an exciting team to watch.
I mean, real quick, want to give a shout out to Coach Mike Neighbors and his incredible ball club as the 23rd ranked Arkansas Razorbacks went on the road to Auburn and beat the Lady Tigers 86 to 70 in a great win. Amber Ramirez, big time shooter, 7 3-pointers to lead all Razorbacks in scoring. But Coach Neighbors in that group, I mean, if you hadn't had a chance to get out and see that basketball team, I'm telling you, missing a treat. This is one of the nation's better basketball teams in all of women's college basketball, a program that I think is continually on the uptick, and just it's a really good time to be a Hog fan. It's a really good time for me as in the media to cover this program. Just a lot of good vibes that I'm feeling throughout the Hill. But we're gonna step away. We got some bills to pay, but we'll be back tomorrow. Demetrius will have that link for those that I know a lot are really interested in getting the Let's Get It t-shirt, as I like to say, for our sponsors. Also, too, if you missed the show, now check this out. You can catch us on iHeartRadio. You can also catch our show in its entirety on Spotify. We're on YouTube. That's On the Hill Sports Talk LLC on our YouTube channel. You can catch us here on our Facebook Live. That's On the Hill Sports Talk. Those are all the areas you can get us, but I want to give a shout out before we get out of here to our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, one office location in Fayetteville, and also one in Rogers. Locomotion, just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and lastly, KDK's Chicken. All that, and then more. We'll be back. I'm telling you, 2020 is going to be the year. We'll have interviews. We're going to talk a little bit more about this hiring staff and more about the must bus in tomorrow's broadcast, and you don't want to miss it. You have your questions, keep shooting them out to us. We love interacting with you all. But happy first of the year from us on OTAs. Let's get this thing going. We look forward to many, many great shows in the year of 2020. But for now, it's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it.